This week's episode of Bizzong is brought to you by Iconoclash Review. Attention, thrill seekers! Iconoclash Review is your home for quality, cheap thrills, featuring shady casino ladies, murderous junkies, strange kaiju cults, Sasquatch love brides, and so much more. Iconoclash Review promotes literacy by publishing only the best contemporary pulp, including crime, horror, noir, sci-fi, fantasy, weird, bizarro, humor, and other words for your uplifting gormandizers. Purchase your very own copy of Iconoclash Review at most fine online retailers, including downandoutbooks.com. But wait, there's more. Follow the thrills over at iconoclash.com for weekly articles, reviews, and interviews with indie writers, artists, and publishers. Want to become part of the wildest genre rag on the planet? Now is your chance. Iconoclash Review will open for submissions June 1st through June 14th, 2020. Visit iconoclash.com for our guidelines. And remember, if you need quality, cheap thrills, you must read Iconoclash Review, an imprint of Down and Out Books. Visit iconoclashreview.com today.
The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Bizzong.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast, with me, your host, Mr. Frank. Zongers, you may or may not believe this, but this particular episode of Bizzong is episode number 200. Holy crap. 200 episodes of Bizzong. We've reached that milestone. I promised I wasn't going to really make a big deal of episode 200. I was really thinking more of doing a big celebration for 250, like a quarter of 1,000 episodes, right? But once I got here at the doorstep of 200, and I just had a regular run-of-the-mill interview to run originally this week, but I'm thought about it, I'm like, I really should do something just a little bit special for 200. It does feel like a bit of a milestone. And often podcasts, when they do reach 200, if they reach 200, we'll celebrate there. So I'm like, let me do at least a little bit something. So my idea was to reach out to the guest from episode number 1, and that is, of course, the legendary Danger Slater. I figured if he started this whole thing off, why not have him back for episode 200? We'll just shoot the shit, do a little bit of celebration. He's not here to promote anything necessarily at all. And just have fun, you know, with my original guest from the first episode of Bizzong. So that's what we're doing to celebrate episode 200 of Bizzong. We're going to talk, and you'll hear Danger even flips the switch on me, and I become the interviewee instead of the interviewer. It might be the first time that's ever happened on Bizzong as well. So lots of cool stuff here, hanging out with Danger Slater for this, the 200th episode of Bizzong. And I promise there will be context, but I will say this for the first time in 200 episodes. Give us the air horn. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show to celebrate this, the 200th episode of Bizzong. Please welcome the guest from the very first episode of Bizzong and several subsequent appearances, the one, the only, Mr. Danger Slater. Welcome back to Bizzong.
Woo! 200 episodes. That's an air horn.
That was a pretty good air horn. I could isolate that and nobody would know the difference that it was you making a sound. You're like the guy from Police Academy.
Career, if this writing thing doesn't work out, I'll just be a professional air horn impersonator.
You could run the comedy club circuit with that, you know, once they open back up.
Yeah, it'll be me and Michael Winslow just kind of making acts on stage at each other.
He's like, I got all the other noises, but I'm not good at the air horns. So I need you to come up, just hang on the side of the stage and wait for me to point.
I got a real up and comer here. He can only do one sound effect, but it's a good one.
You'll never tell. Like, I could have put him in an air horn costume, and you would swear that that was a boat coming through.
That's ridiculous.
That's what we do. Mr. Danger Slater, you were with me when I first started this thing. I dragged you down into my basement. I said, I'm doing this podcast. Would you be the first guest? And you probably were like, shrugged your shoulders and said, yeah, whatever. Could you have imagined that we'd be talking now for the 200th episode of this one particular podcast?
Yeah, this is crazy. I'm very proud of you, Frank, for this show and how well it's done over the past, how many years? 5 years?
Yeah, I think we might be like in our heading towards the 6th year. But yeah, I think it was January. It had to be January 2015 that, we probably recorded the episode in December 2014. And then I think it aired in January 2015. So yeah, we're, year and a half.
Yeah. I was in Jersey to visit my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually really difficult to get down to, my parents live in North Jersey and you're in Central Jersey, if you believe in such a place.
I know you're in the up in the.
We'll get that joke, but I had to borrow a car from my sister. My mom wouldn't lend me her car. She's like, "No, I need it." And I'm like, "Oh," so I had to get a ride to my sister's and then ask to borrow my sister's car and drive down there. But was that the first time we met?
No, we've met at CrawlCon, right? I think it's the first time we actually met face to face.
Yeah, we had a long history.
Yeah, it all started from when I did the podcast previous to Bizzong, and you know what? It really, I read Love Me because it just looked like something cool, and I picked it up and read it and enjoyed it and reviewed it positively, and then I think you basically reached out and said, hey, that's cool, and thanks for reviewing and all that, and I think I got to talking on that podcast, so you start listening to that podcast, and you're like, hey, that's cool. And you start listening to that other podcast kind of regularly. And then we just, while I was doing that podcast, I decided I wanted to try writing too. And eventually we actually met when I went to that one CrawlCon that we were both at.
Yeah, that was fun. We went and we went to ShopRite. We got crab.
That's right. We got crab rolls or something.
Yeah, it was the lobster rolls. That's what we got.
That's it. Lobster rolls from the ShopRite and hung out at a Best Western or something, all crammed in with all the attendees of the CrawlCon. And it was that's definitely a standout weird time for certain. So
yeah.
My first opportunity to hang out with bizarro people, the quote unquote bizarro people, and I was not disappointed from the musical acts that went on, and it was certainly something that I had never really been exposed to, that sort of noise music and stuff and the experimental stuff. Jordan Crawl doing his quote unquote reading was fucking really amazing, and then just flat out partying afterwards. That was my introduction to hanging out with legit bizarro people.
Yeah, well, you know what? Me too. I kind of went to the one the year before.
Yeah.
But it was at that convention. I think we've had this conversation before too about how it was hard, especially back then, to have anything going on the East Coast, and so the fact that Jordan was kind of just grabbing these people and getting them together, it was a really great opportunity for me and you to meet, and I got to meet Christoph and Lisa and Jordan and Phil Lopresti and the first year I was there, Justin Grimble was there, and C.V. Hunt and Anderson Prunty, and I got to meet all these cool people that I really looked up to, and I was reading all their books and stuff, and it was super exciting.
Yeah, and I remember seeing videos or whatever that was coming out of the one that you went to the year before when I went, and it was seeing you there that made it cool for me, because with Jordan Crawl, he had a bit of a feud and stuff going on with Eraserhead, and he was sort of and he had an abrasive personality on Facebook and stuff. So I wasn't sure how to if I wanted to hang out with him. And then seeing you there, I'm like, well, fucking Danger's there. It must be cool. So, you know, I threw myself in for going the following year. And I mean, yeah, it was the best thing. And like you said, for us being on the East Coast, it was hard to find any kind of group of writers to really pal around with. So, and of course, hanging out with Jordan and everybody completely shattered any kind of negative connotation I thought they might have. They're really just, everybody's really great people.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, and now I see you have this whole little writing crew. Now that I've moved to the other coast, you know, you kind of hooked up with a bunch of these guys and you're doing all these readings and shows and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you left me all alone, so I had to I had to find some others. And it was cool, like the crew I have, you know, we didn't meet in New Jersey. We met down at Scares of Care in Virginia. And being at that convention, and it was like, oh, you're from Jersey too? Me too. And you're from Jersey too? Me too. And then we all started hanging out after meeting up at Scares of Care and kind of form this whatever writer crew that we have doing the Beers and Fears books and signings at breweries and stuff like that. So yeah, I have finally found at least a small niche group of people who are fairly like-minded.
I've noticed about running into people from New Jersey and other states, like you immediately just have kinship. First of all, you can like hone in on it from like a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what it is. There's like an aura, maybe it's a smell, but like you're just like I could see somebody and be like, just the way they walk or like the look in their eye. I'm just like, you know, that person's from New Jersey, and then you know, and then you could just go up and be like, hey, where are you from? And they're like, oh, I'm from Newark, and you're like, oh, cool, you know, I'm from Parsippany or whatever, and, you know, and you could just sit back and judge everybody else.
Yeah, and it's cool because we know, like, we walk up to one another and say, like, where you're from. We don't do the asshole thing like everybody thinks we do and say, oh, what exit? That doesn't happen. We don't say Jersey, and we don't say what exit. I don't know where those things came from, but it definitely doesn't happen. So you're being out there in Portland now. You've been out there quite a while now. I mean, it's probably almost 5 years as well you've been out there.
Yeah, it'll be 5 coming up in the summer, I believe.
I mean, and that's crazy. And there's no doubt that your career has improved by being there. I guess the opportunity for your career to improve is only enhanced by being out there, being so close to essentially like the birthplace of the scene and being around so many people and influencers in that genre right up there has been no doubt a help. And it's really like the kind of whole point you went out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, there was a few reasons, but that was one of them, sure. You know, I had a lot of opportunity to, not just like I think I still would have been writing regardless, but I had a lot of more opportunity to network with, and maybe more than network, like become friends with a lot of people and other artists and writers, and not just people in the Bizarro scene, but there's a whole, you know, literary scene out in this city too. Mm-hmm. And you know, I've got, you know, and I got to do all these readings and really kind of perfect, maybe not perfect is a strong word, but I've got to do more readings and kind of hone in on what it is I want to do as a performer as well as a writer.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. Like, it looks like there's more opportunities. Bars are sort of more open to hosting readings and stuff like that. Like, I dread trying to walk into a bar in Jersey and go, yeah, I want to read on a Saturday night. They like smash a beer glass. What are you, fucking nuts? I got to have live music, baby. Get out of here with that reading stuff. I don't think it would work out here. Not
to rub it in, but we have what is opened up last year or 2 years ago. It's called the Rose City Book Pub, and it's literally a bookstore / restaurant / bar. So they like book readings all the time, you know, and encourage that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a place that's seriously lacking out here. I haven't seen it for sure. But like you said, it's a very literary city, very artistic city, and there's more opportunity for you to get that, not just to write and be close, but to, like you said, get out there and do readings and performances in front of people, no doubt. Do you also think like just the being closer proximity to like John Skip and Fungasm and all those people, just on a working basis. Like it's made it easier through editing processes and all that, and just collaborating on your projects, as opposed to try and do it from two different coasts.
Yes, and you know what it is too, like especially with someone like John Skip, who, you know, we will hang out, we'll just go to the movies or go out to dinner, you know, like we hung out on Christmas because I don't have any family or anything up here, and his family's down in California, so like it's cool that I'm not just going to him for editing type things, you know, or work type things.
Mm-hmm.
So like we actually get to forge a real friendship. And I think when that happens, like there's a lot more give and take when it comes to editing too. So when we get to the point where we're like, I share something with him and he's like, oh, I got some notes for you, or I think you should do this. It's more of like a conversation instead of like, you know, this person who wrote all these books that I read and you know, look up to and stuff, just straight up telling me, you know, what I need to do. And I'm just like too timid to, you know, be like, well, yeah, what do you think about this though? You know, like it's more of a back and forth, which I think makes the work stronger.
Right. And you're not forced to collaborate through email either too, which kind of bogs things down.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I'm not saying that can't happen remotely. Obviously, that happens all the time. Yeah. But like, you know, it's just a different animal to be hanging out in person with someone, which of course none of us can do now.
No, we're back to emails and shit.
Yeah, we're all back to email
for a while. So how has the Rona affected has it affected your writing at all? Has it put you in the doldrums and made it harder to write? Has it been easier to write because you're, you know, all cooped up and got nothing better to do?
Oh man. Well, it hasn't affected my writing because I don't know, like my day starts exactly the same and kind of follows the same pattern it always did. I just like don't go out to eat or go to the movies or hang out with people, which is what I would normally do in the evenings anyway. Mm-hmm. So like my morning is kind of my writing time, and this really hasn't affected it at all. You know, and I know a lot of people are struggling with like just what's going on in the world and the existential implications of all of this, and you know, or their own personal strife they might be experiencing because of they're out of work or whatever. But I haven't had to deal with any of that personally, so I'm still writing the same as I always was.
And I don't suppose like you had any like releases imminent or anything, or you know, in any sort of like in the next over the summer or not, where things might be affected. Like it's really not by the timing affecting much at all for you.
No, I wonder how it is for people releasing books right now. Like, I mean, I guess you just released one, what, 2 months ago? It was?
Yeah, the end of February.
Yeah, so I don't know. Has this been has it been affecting your sales at all? Or
oh yeah, it's been you know, not like I was doing gangbusters, but it came out and it was doing well in the opening weeks, and you can see right on the sales sheet, March 9th. That's the last sale. Bang. It's just like a wall. There's no page reads. There's no sales. There's, I think, been maybe 100+ page reads and one sale since March 9th, which is basically the day that they started, you know, doing these quarantines, started ramping up around the country. So, I mean, to me, it seems like a direct correlation. And I can only imagine... I blame it on, but, and it's a hard thing to say, but I mean, at the beginning of this, and nobody really knew, you know, everybody thought we were going to be locked in and nobody was going to be able to work, and we wouldn't be able to leave our house, and we'd just be us and our toilet paper huddled up for weeks and months at a time. And I mean, right or wrong, publishers and authors started just throwing free books into the market across all genres. And yeah. The market got flooded with free books. And that's like, again, you see, that's where I see that wall just crash for me on sales. Because why buy a book when there's like years worth of reading that was given away for free? So that made things tough. And then I sort of scratched my head. Like, I get it. I get being generous, but just the amount of it that was going on was like, I think you're all starting to shoot yourselves in the foot. And then you would see things like, oh, we're writers and creatives, and we're the first ones affected, so please consider buying books. I'm like, but you all just gave your books away for free. It's like, it was like, you want your cake and eat it too type of thing. But that's definitely, I think everybody did start recognizing that fairly quick. So it hasn't been it's all calmed down now, and I'm starting to see people going ahead with releases. I just recently interviewed Grady Hendrix, who's very high profile, and they went through with releasing his new book that's doing gangbusters by all accounts, and he still can't do book tours and promotions like he had planned to, and he's had to put those things off, and whether they'll carry on when this is all over or not, I guess decisions will have to be made. But he still, had to figure out how to do social distancing. I guess he was starting to do, like everybody else is doing now, the YouTube streams and the Facebook Live stuff, and doing what he could. So, I mean, right from him to, the really independent authors that are still like, I don't know. I would have had 5 sales. So if I don't get the 5 sales now, and it takes a few months to get them, so what? Like, at least put my book out there. So I guess it's a hard call, but so far from what I'm seeing, people are still releasing books despite it.
I had a lot of luck during all this, and maybe this is some advice that indie writers could consider too, depending on how big their networks are on social media. But I had bought I think it was 60 or 70 books of my own. Mm-hmm. I was going to sell half of them, personalize them, use the money to buy a plane ticket to go to Printers Row in June, where I go with Michael Allen Rose and John Wayne Comunale. And, we sell books. We've done this before. Right. And I was going to sell the second half of the books. But when all this started happening, I'm like, well, shit, that got canceled already. And I'm like, I need to just unload these books. And I think people on Twitter and stuff, especially, kind of recognize that, being an artist is a difficult thing, and selling books is hard. And when they see that you're selling your own copies and you're getting a good chunk of that profit, I'm more inclined to buy them. I sold through all 60 or 70 books within 2 weeks, I think, just on Twitter.
That's great. And I've seen you do that before, where hey, my car broke down. I need a new muffler. I got all these books. Here's the deal. And you always seem to do well, getting to people to buy up that, that stock you have of books in a fairly short period of time. And there's been some other authors outside of you I've seen do that direct sale thing, and it seems pretty successful. And I don't know. I've never really, thought about doing that myself, and I wonder if that, like you said, at least somebody knows they're helping out the author directly, and you're not, you're kind of cutting out the Amazon thing, even though Amazon's gotten paid or somebody's gotten paid to print the books. But yeah, I can see the appeal to that and how it would work. But I mean, that's you have to do some work with that too. It's not as easy as just the books on Amazon, go buy it. You have to collect those orders, put them all in mailers and get them out to a post office, which I guess could be tough. I don't know if you've had any difficulty mailing things out with the social distancing stuff.
Not really. It's just like at the supermarket. There's X's all over the floors, and they tell you where to stand in the post office, and I print what I can through my own personal printer, so I don't have to wait online. Mm-hmm. It's usually only if someone from a different country orders a book, because I can't print foreign postage on my printer, at least not cheaply. So yeah, I don't know. I think, but to make this work though, I think that's kind of where just building a platform for yourself pays off, because I've been using Twitter for years and years, and I don't promote books or sell them all the time. I'm mostly just goofing off and just, talking to other people, retweeting things, whatever I think is funny, or, someone I'm friends with, or someone I like, or is promoting something, I'll promote them. And, you do that enough, it builds this kind of like base for you to of people that are going to help you or be excited when you have something for sale, or like if they weren't and they just thought I was funny, they happen to have a few extra bucks and now they see that I have my book out. They're like, oh, great. Like, I might as well buy this. That guy's hilarious, or that guy has good opinions on movies, or he's smart on whatever, politics. I'm not saying you have to be funny, but whatever your thing is, people can kind of latch on to that, I think. And then when you have your moment to sell something to them, that's kind of what makes them buy it.
Yeah, it's cool. And I was always like looking like, man, how come you could do this 2, 3 times, 4 times a year, where you can say I got 30, 50 books or whatever to move, and he moves them. And I'm like, and not to put you down, it was like, how are there really that many people you're constantly able to find that haven't read your stuff yet and sell new people? And I noticed at one point, I don't know when this was, like on your Twitter, you have like close to 20,000 people following you on Twitter. Was that, did you grow that organically? Did you buy into one of those follow me services to build it out? Like, how did you grow a 20,000 person Twitter follower base?
Well, I use a program to help manage it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm buying followers. That's ridiculous. Or Twitter picks up on that shit immediately and will, delete your account.
Okay.
And then even if I was doing that, it's usually like bot accounts when you do that, and it's really just to inflate your thing and make you look cool. So it's not anything like that, but I do use a program called Tweepy, Tweepi. That's it.
Okay.
Tweepi. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And basically what you could do with that is you could input certain like other writers or people who, like, say I wanted to get some more followers that were maybe into what I'm doing, and I want to follow some people who I might be into what they're doing. So I could input a writer that I like who's got a big following already, like someone like Grady Hendrix, let's say, and it'll show you all of his users, and you could kind of put all these filters on, like only people who tweet in the last day. So I'm only getting active users of Twitter, people who are on it all the time. And then I, filter out anyone who doesn't have a profile picture and this and that. And then when you get to this point where it's like you're filtered to these people who are active on Twitter that are into, Grady's work, let's say, and I can kind of look through that and follow anyone that I find interesting. And then sometimes they follow you back, and that's a way to just build followers that way.
That sounds really helpful.
Follow you back, and then you just engage with anyone who talks to you, And obviously there's organic growth with all of this too. If I make a joke and it gets retweeted a bunch of times, people just end up following you. It's all kind of happening at the same time.
But it's sort of a snowball effect too. Like the more people you have, the more opportunity to get retweeted. The more you get retweeted, the more you'll attract more people. So it sounds like it's easier to grow as you hit 5,000, 6,000, and maybe get a bit of a snowball effect with that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think following back people on Twitter specifically is part of like the courtesy of the service, if someone follows you, as long as they're not, some kind of nutcase or someone or a robot, you're like, well, let me follow them back. And then, but that doesn't really mean anything, right? Because it's just this wall of information coming down.
Right.
That's kind of how Twitter works. So, that's why you have to engage with people, because once you start engaging with people, Twitter, when you first log onto it, has a thing that says you might have missed, while you were gone, so they'll give you all the people that you talk to the most will have your stuff sitting right on top. before you get to that wall of just endless Twitter information.
Yeah, that took me a long time to figure out how that all worked, and even the, like you said, this wall of information where if you were to constantly tweet book promos or post book promos, buy my book, here's my book, this is a link to my book. If you were to do that on Facebook, everybody just call you a spammer and run you out of the thing. But the actually the opposite holds true in Twitter, where the more you tweet something, the better, or the more likely you are to get sales from it by being spam. It feels wrong, but it actually works right. And then I guess when you have that bigger following, it's just that many more opportunities for people to catch one of those tweets as they're coming by.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that I think to be a writer or an indie writer in the world today, you have to think like a computer program. It's kind of, like you have to like learn to speak the computer program's language so that you can use it to your benefit, instead of just being like, this is too confusing to me, or I'm just lost in all of this. And especially on Twitter, like engaging with people, if someone replies to something you say, like talking back to them, and just so that there's like this link between you two, and it's not just the computer program that's going to, the Twitter program is going to keep you and that person linked up, kind of like making sure they see what you're posting, but also you're now a human being instead of just one of the endless stream of things floating by,
right.
Information.
Yeah, that's really, really important too. You definitely got a good point with that. I know the other thing I've always struggled with Twitter was like, as you say, the following game and the follow back, and you're trying to get the right people, and it's difficult to manage on your own without some sort of like Twitter manager thing to help you do that, because I always hated the fact that like it's like I'm constantly being followed by writers, and then I follow writers back, and it's like I don't want to follow. I want to follow readers. I want readers to follow me back. That's what I'm looking for. But they're a little more trickier to find because they're not out there going, "Hey, I'm a professional reader," or anything like that. It's different. So when you have something like you're using to kind of help you, get people that might actually be reading books and not necessarily trying to just promote their book to you and you back to them, that seems pretty key.
Yeah. Well, and then, when you're talking about organic growth with that too, like a lot of that I think is readers, right? Like those are the people that are finding you through either other writers or through the like book blogging community or Bookstagram. Like, you've seen this. It's kind of this huge kind of subgenre of like just readership of these people that love to take pictures of their books and just talk about books all the time. And I was like, oh man, where were you guys like 10 years ago? Like when I was first trying to get some foothold in this, like, cause right now there's so many of these people out there that are just kind of excited to promote other people's work, and it's great because in a lot of ways, that them promoting other people's work is them promoting themselves because that's what they do. They're reviewers and bloggers and stuff.
Yeah, the whole Instagram thing is it's mind-boggling how well that works, and you don't even have to read the books anymore. Like you said, like all you got to do is get your book into that person's hand, and they'll take pictures next to doilies and skulls and candles and flowers and whatnot, and make the book look great. And they don't even have to open the friggin' thing anymore. All I got to do is make it look great for a picture on Instagram, and that's almost enough anymore to gain more attention for your book in the world.
I think it's that like there's just an endless amount of people out there, like there's just so many people in the world, and yeah, it's just like getting your stuff in front of them is all that it takes, because it's really a numbers game of who's actually going to be interested in it, especially when you're writing something like kind of esoteric or weird or niche, like Bizarro, or or even your new book, the Cat Coin. Like it's going to be a niche audience, and it's kind of by design, just the way this fiction works. So the more people that could just get eyes on it, that's all that matters, right? Like, they don't need, a starred review on Kirkus or Publishers Weekly or whatever the hell it's called. Like, they just need to see a book with a cool cover, look cool, and they'll be like, I wonder what that's about.
Yep.
Or one person that they trust go, hey, I like this. And then they'll be like, oh, check it out. And maybe it's for them and maybe it's not. But like, as long as it's out there, that's what you have to keep doing. Like, putting it out there. Like, and that's why I think Facebook is not great for any sort of promotion. I think I've basically stopped using Facebook completely for promoting. I'll mention stuff just like, hey, I got a new book out, my friends, because that's what it really is. It's like people I know on a more personal level,
right.
or, old coworkers. Like, I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are like coworkers I just haven't seen in 10 years and I probably never will see again because, why would I see someone I worked with 10 years ago?
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know. Twitter's just a whole different animal. Like, you can kind of find your audience on there, or have them find you. And you just got to keep throwing those lines out.
And being so witty as you tend to do, you throw out your little witticisms or quirky observations or just flat out goofiness out there and just try to get people endeared to you. Like, oh, that's so funny that he wrote that, and let me retweet that, and that really you get that to work for you as well.
I've had people ask me this before too, about how to, with Twitter specifically, how to like get it to work for them, and being funny or being witty or whatever you're saying is one-liners are easy for me to come up with. Like, yeah, I just look at something and I'll think of something funny and I'll just tweet it. Like, it'll be like a non sequitur and everyone will laugh and that's that. And that's something I can do. But I understand a lot of people might not be able to, or they just aren't good at that. And that's totally fine. I think the most important thing is to find the thing that you are good at talking about and then have that be your thing. Like I was saying before, if you have good observations about movies or books like that, you don't have to be funny. You can just be the guy or girl who has good observations about movies and books, and that is your other thing on how you can engage with people. Or, some certain people are political or, I don't know, or just very candid about their own struggles, like whatever people can connect to. I think that's the most important thing.
And to be genuine about it as well. Like, don't be fake about
people
it.
Could smell like fakeness a freaking mile away. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know how, but like, I don't know. People just don't engage with it if they don't get that you're being genuine.
They pick up on that immediately. So, like you said, you've kind of recognized in yourself that you're able to do these quick one-liners and little funny things, non sequiturs, and but you own that. You're not like let me go to the sequitur of the day and write that down and get people to follow me. You're not doing that. You're totally all original content and just get people interested. And if they connect with that message, they'll probably connect with what you're writing in your books too, and may check them out. And you need 20,000 of those people to make that happen even more.
That takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's like years and years of doing basically the same, tweeting many times a day and just kind of putting myself out there and continuously running. And, we were talking just before about how you're like, oh, you could sell like 60 or 70 books in like a few, like a week or two, and you do it a few times a year. Like, that's not something I could have done 5 years ago. That's something that is happening now.
Right.
Because of all the work that I've put in, connecting with people on this particular platform over all that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I guess there could be a tipping point, but I've never seen something like that. It's always been, you have to keep trying, it never just started coming back,
right,
folding back on itself and just coming to me, like it is, I still need to get out there and be, Danger Slater in front of the world to
Right.
get them
Yeah.
to pay any attention.
You can't say I've hit 20,000 and we're good here, because you needed that 20,000 to sell 60 books in, say, January. And, there's still more people out there who maybe didn't get in on it yet, but they seen like you sell 60 books and now you're selling them again. And like, maybe I'll get in on it this time. And it's that you're able to constantly find 60 new people that haven't read your book, that are just curious enough and seen you sending them out last time and saw that many people interested in them and willing to take the chance. But you got to keep those numbers growing and growing and growing to keep that interest up as well.
Yeah. I mean, and then even if if you're running a sale or you share your link and someone doesn't buy your book this month, it doesn't mean they won't next month.
Right.
Like people's personal finances have a lot to do with that kind of stuff. And I also heard somewhere that you need to be told something like 10 times or something before you actually pull the trigger on it. That's why advertising has jingles.
Right.
So that you hear the jingle 10 times, and by the 10th time you're like, oh, I need to try that gum.
It's why you drive down the road and see 45 Geico billboards. Like, I didn't see that enough. Well, you wouldn't know what the hell Geico was and gotten frustrated seeing 45 of them if you didn't see 45 Geico billboards to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, you know which insurance company's not making any money? The one that doesn't have any billboards, because nobody knows what the hell they are.
Right. You're either Jake from State Farm with your trousers, or you're the Lizard from Geico, and that's about all I can come up with off the top of my head. But they're the ones you see all the time.
It's true, man.
So we just got to get billboard advertising for books now. How come we don't see that?
I would buy, if it was like some sort of affordable thing, I would buy a billboard. It would just be my face too. It would be like my face and then the cryptic message, so that people would have to search it out, like a weird phrase to Google or something. Be like, what the fuck does this billboard mean? And then they will eventually get to me, because those are my people. Those are the ones that are working for it who go, what the fuck is this? I need to know about this.
Right.
Like, those are the kind of people that are going to dig into something like indie lit or bizarro lit specifically.
You almost need to
we all ended up here because we were digging below the surface of what's at our bookstores.
Right. So you want to attract somebody who's willing to follow the breadcrumb trail that you leave, because that's who you want to read your book.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I don't need 45 billboards, just one.
You need 45. That was the whole point of this conversation. Talking about promotion to something I want to bring up for this 200th episode celebration that we're having here. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Is that not to toot my own horn, but it sometimes I'm even like blown away myself by like the fact that this has been 200 episodes. I can't think of any other bizarro, weird fiction based podcast that has existed consistently for that long. And I wanted to bring up, like, how many podcasts have you started and stopped in the time since Bizzong's? It's got to be like 3 or 4, right?
I'm on my third one now. So I have a current podcast with two of my friends from high school.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I seen you started that recently, right?
Yeah, well, we're on our 25th episode, I think, or 26th, something like that. Let me just plug that real quick. It's called Life Coach Pandemonium, and we take a subject, and that the host, my friend Sean Reimer, picks the subject. That's something he needs some life coaching on, and me and my other friend, Mr. Vales, give him life advice based around that. And it's mostly just dick jokes and stuff like that. That's how that ends up. But yeah, Frank, specifically getting back to how long you've been doing this show, I actually wrote a couple of questions, interview questions I wanted to ask you about Bizzong.
Holy shit. I don't know that I've ever been interviewed on my own episode, but yeah, let's do it. Let's shake it up. Let's do something different.
Yeah. I debated telling you I was going to do this before we recorded, but I thought it'd be more fun to just spring it on you at some point.
Yeah, hit me with it.
All right, so like you know, like you said, 5 years this thing's been going on. And thinking back to where you started, what were you hoping to accomplish with Bizzong, and how did that compare to like how it actually turned out?
I wanted to do Bizzong. I was doing the pot. It was called Books, Beer, and Bullshit before I was doing Bizzong, and I did it with a friend. And we would, just like the title suggests, we would talk about the books we read, specifically like read a book together, review it, and then crack open a beer, try it out, and bullshit about whatever was on our mind for that particular episode. And I found that as we were, because we would have to decide on a book to read together, and it was as I was discovering Bizarro and getting into Bizarro books, I found it really difficult to get him on board with Bizarro. It just wasn't clicking for him. But I was really getting into it and wanting to read more and more of it. So it got to the point where that podcast was just fading away. It was getting more and more difficult to do. And this opportunity presented itself with the, what was it, Project iRadio Network, and I was offered like, hey, you could do a podcast over there, because my friend Armand Rosamilia knew that this is kind of a direction I wanted to go with podcasting. So he's like, you could be the Bizarro guy on that thing. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. That sounds cool. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? What kind of podcast am I going to do? There's a million freaking podcasts, and but I'm like, I definitely want to talk. I don't know if I want to sit there, and it's still laborious to sit there, read a book, and try to review it. So I didn't really want to do that, but I enjoyed on Books, Beer, and Bullshit when we had writers on the few times that we did, and just chit chatted with them. I'm like, so all right, let's do this. It's not like I was breaking new ground interviewing writers. There was plenty of those podcasts at the time, but nobody was talking about Bizarro. There were a couple of podcasts when I joined the project iRadio. There was The Outer Dark with I forgot. That's terrible. I think it's still going on too, but they were sort of the quote unquote Bizarro podcast at the time. But that was more whatever new weird Lovecraftian type stuff they were into. So I was tackling something different. There was oh my God, what was his name? There was just Bizarro Cast or something it was called, with Christopher Chris Boyle, yeah. He was doing that, but he was already starting to, you could tell he was losing interest by that time. So there just didn't seem to be a podcast I thought that Bizarro needed a podcast. There were a million horror-based, romance-based, venture-based, but there was nothing for Bizarro. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to step in and try to do my part and help promote the genre. And originally I really wanted to be fun. Originally, I've said this on a previous episode, I think the 100th episode, where the word Bizzong came from was that I envisioned trying almost to do like a game show where I would hook up with a writer for the episode, get them to like say, give away a paperback book or some kind of prize package, and then get a contestant who's not the writer, just a fan or somebody listen to the podcast, get them to join in and do like a trivia type thing. And if you got enough points or something, you'd win the book or whatever prize pack the author of the week was had put together. And I'm like, it's pretty fun. It still sounds like a cool idea, but
it's like a lot of work.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, it sounds so fun, but my God, trying to coordinate all that and coming up with questions every week and making sure that we get prize packs in time and getting them to the winners if they win and all that. It's just me, and I don't if I had a team and all that stuff, maybe I would do that, but I thought the word Bizzong sounded like a great game show word, just a nonsense game show word. So when I finally I'm just gonna do an interview fucking podcast, but we're gonna stick with the Bizzong thing, and it even sounded dumb to me, but I'm like, to the point of if you just hear something enough, you'll buy into it. I'm like, I'm just going to fucking sell this Bizzong thing. And I totally know, like when it was first going on, nobody was saying it with the exclamation point. Everybody was saying with a question, Bizzong. What the fuck is a Bizzong? But it wasn't long, maybe 10 episodes in, all of a sudden you could I could hear everybody kind of buying into the Bizzong thing, and it just became sort of the vernacular. Not too far into the thing, once everybody started noticing it and listening more and more, and it gained
with the
popularity.
Repetition.
Yeah, the repetition.
Exactly what we're saying. It's times or whatever it takes.
If I just keep screaming it enough with a serious face, people will buy into it, and they have.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. Like, I know you've expanded the kind of definition of what the show has been about too over the last maybe year or two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, taking in a lot of other writers and stuff from horror and other things like that, or people who maybe wouldn't even consider themselves bizarro at all. Maybe just might be weird horror writers.
Right.
Talking to all these different people though, and from all these different communities and stuff, do you think this has had a positive influence on your own writing, or what have you glommed from all these conversations you've had? And I know, like, when me and you have talked before on this show, like, our conversation went another hour past when you stop recording,
Mm-hmm.
just because we're both getting some more. So, like, I don't know, you get to meet and talk to all these cool people and stuff. Like, how do you think that's affected your writing?
I think it's given me a confidence that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Like, when I can sit down and recently when I was interviewing Grady Hendrix is a good example, and he was talking about his process and how, and I'm listening there, and I'm like getting all excited. I'm like, fuck, I do that same exact shit too. So I must be doing it right. Fucking Grady Hendrix is doing it and I'm doing it. Then my approach to that has to be correct, or at least, it's not wrong. So that's like the biggest thing. And I've always said, like, I'm using this podcast as my writing school. And, I always say, like, it's difficult for me. As much as I love Bizarro, I found it very difficult to write what is quote unquote Bizarro. And I don't think when I've really tried to do it, it ever works well. So I've shied away from doing it. And like you said, that's when I started sitting there going, like, I love promoting it, love talking about it, but, I understand now, however many years it was in, where before I made that change, where it's like, I need to start calling this, because I would love to get like the horror comedy guys on, and because that's what I love writing, and I just kind of naturally write, but I'm not talking to those guys, because I found that with horror comedy, it's got its own unique challenges in trying to sell that stuff, because a lot of horror fans sort of scoff at horror comedy, and it's having the opportunity to open that up and say, now I can interview Jeff Strand, that's okay, and talk to him and have that conversation where he's like, yeah, it's a bitch. It's some people just like are annoyed by the fact that you're making fun of, or you're having comedy and horror. It doesn't click for them. I'm like, when I can get that out of Jeff Strand and know that that's okay, because he's Jeff fucking Strand, and that he's facing that hurdle also. You try to get, an answer if you overcome it and work with that. But just knowing that we're both in the same boat, and having either somebody on my level, above my level, or just starting out, talking to those people from all those levels and hearing what they're doing. It's a complete enrichment. I think it's just that knowing we're all in the same boat kind of feeling is the biggest thing I've gotten out of talking to God knows how many people now over the span of 200 episodes.
Yeah, and I've listened to probably 90% of what you've done over the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And the 10% I didn't listen to is like the episodes I was on. Like I'm like, I don't need to listen to my own freaking episode. I was there. I had the conversation.
Right.
But like, yeah, like it is kind of just this repository, I guess. Is that the word? Suppository?
It's a suppository
of information. It's just this, like, it's just hearing a lot of people having the same either struggles or seeing their own unique ways they've kind of found an audience or broke through with their own writing, either creatively or, selling stuff wise or whatever the case is. Like, it's really great, especially when you're saying, too, using specifically Bizarro writers and horror comedy writers. Because there are a lot, it's kind of a lot of the same boat. And I think a lot of our readers will interchangeably read Bizarro and horror, and specifically funny horror,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it is. It's great to just hear all these people and what they have to offer.
It's been a big boon since I rebranded I hated it. It was all planned out. Like I promised everybody, I didn't rebrand it because of whatever happened with BizarroCon and that ugliness. Like I had already been planning on doing this for like months, and I figured, it was like once I knew I had the Jeff Strain interview, I figured that was where I wanted to make that switch and rebrand it and sort of open up the scope of who I interview. Unfortunately, the timing of that, I always hoped that people wouldn't take it as a slight, in the Bizarro thing, because that was never my intention. And I can definitely report, like, nobody's ever called it, and nobody's said anything like, oh, you did that to get away from that, because it's not the case. And I've demonstrated that I'm still talking to many Bizarro, probably still the majority of whom I'm talking to are Bizarro adjacent type writers.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's been a great thing too to listen to you kind of sharpen your interviewing skills, I think, over the years too. Not that you were ever bad at it. Oh my God.
Oh no, not at all. No.
What I mean is, like, in the recent, at least in the last year or two, pretty much since the rebranding, the show feels a lot more organic and conversational than necessarily I'm going to run through my list of questions and ask you all the same question, and so that I make sure I hit all the points that I need everybody to say. So, even as a listener, you're getting a lot more information, because when people are kind of letting their guard down and not just answering their interview questions of what their new book's about, that's when you get the good stuff, like, it's cool to know what people's new book's about. Of course I want to know that, but like, I could get that information by going on to Amazon and reading a review or whatever, just reading the back cover. Like, the real stuff is when you really get into the nitty gritty with someone.
Walk into the weeds a little bit. I have noticed for sure, and probably, like, as you said, within the last 2 years, possibly, that my show notes have gotten a lot shorter. I used to prepare all kinds of, like, questions as, like, not as strict. I never wanted to be as strict. Here's a question, give me an answer, on to the next one, no follow. Like, I hate it. I heard that a lot in podcasts, and that type of podcasting disgusted me. So I always intended to be conversational with things and find questions that I didn't have written down as the answers come at me, and let things wander. That was always my intention, to be the style. But now I've found that all I write down is, like, the person's book that they're going to promote, so I don't forget that. Maybe, who's coming out from, dates, just a real hard thing. And I don't have many other questions. I might write a bullet point down, discuss the podcast or something I might know about them. But other than that, I just, like, tell me about the new book, and then they start talking, and I'll pick something out of that. And I go, oh, well, how'd you do that? Or why would you do this? And then just let the I think that's what I've improved at subconsciously, is, like, I have the confidence to know I can find the follow-up questions, the conversation, much more organically without thinking about it any longer, and just let my own mind, my own curiosity wander on those things. And then the feedback seems to be like, everybody fucking loves that. I love that interview. And it's kind of, I'm always a little worried, because I'm legitimately just, it's two people having a conversation, and it feels very personal to me, individual to me. And I don't know if everybody else is going to find the same things interesting. Sometimes I listen to podcasts. I'm like, oh no, why aren't you asking him that? You're not, you didn't pick up on that. And I wonder, I hope that nobody's listening and going, you're asking all the wrong questions, idiot. And I don't find it interesting, but at least the feedback I get so far is by and large otherwise.
Well, I'm thinking that about even this conversation now too, because what do? We talked about Twitter for like 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. Like, someone who's not on Twitter would be like, I don't give a fuck about this. Like, what? Who cares?
Right.
Like, shut up, guy. And I have that. I think I have those kind of trepidations too. Just thinking about, like, oh man, am I relating to people? Like, am I saying things that some people care about? Especially if I'm trying to promote myself as an author. But at the same time, it also goes back to that thing we were talking about being genuine. And listening to two people have a conversation and be interested in each other is kind of always interesting, from a listener standpoint, because it is genuine and it goes, it's just two human beings being human, and that's engaging.
Yeah, I hope so. Like you, I don't really listen back too much. Like I said, I've lived all these podcasts already, and I might make a note like, oh, go back and edit here. There was something a little choppy there, but after all said and done, I put it all together and slap it out there. I really don't listen back too often, so I just hope anymore. And that was something I also did a lot early on. Like I would re-listen to, I put it all together and then it would come out the next day and it'd be in my podcast player and I would just sit there listening to it like a fucking asshole, listening to myself fucking all the time, talk for an hour that I just had the conversations. But over time, it just, I wasn't listening because an egotistical thing. I just was listening back to make sure the whole thing sounded good and I didn't accidentally leave something in or drop something out and make sure it all sounded good in the end as a whole. And I guess now I just have the confidence that we're just good. Unless somebody comes back and is like, oh my God, I can't believe you left that thing in where he shit his pants and you said you were going to cut it and you did. And that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, well, I just shit mine, but I didn't make a big deal about it, so nobody has to know. That's
everybody knows that if Danger shits his pants, he wants the world to know about it.
All right, I got one more question for you.
Okay.
So, 200 episodes. We're going to go, let's say you're going to go another 400 episodes, another 1,000 episodes. Who knows? But where do you see the show going in the future?
I don't know. I'd be lying if I told you I haven't thought about if there's going to be an end point to it all. As people do or don't know, like the shakeup with the network. I don't want to call it the shakeup, but just the changing with the Project Entertainment Network. I thought a little bit about it. I didn't want to stop, but I'm like, I don't know, if I want to continue this or not. But I'm like, no, let me keep doing. I'm still enjoying doing this. I think when I find it hard to want to sit down and find people to talk to and take the time to talk to everybody for, like you said, I talk to you here an hour roughly. And it may be actually, like you said, after I say a great interview, everything, thank you. I don't hang up and often have further conversations beyond that. So that people never hear. But I love that all. And I don't want to give that up yet. And I guess, I don't know. I'm happy doing it. Obviously, it's a labor of love. I always hoped at least doing a podcast like most writers would help promote myself. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I haven't found like just doing Bizzong has led to book sales necessarily. There's a little bit of it, but it's not, it's not a huge drive for marketing books. So it's truly a labor of love. And I guess just when I fall out of love with doing it, that'll be the time. But I'm not feeling that whatsoever now. So we're at episode 200. I can tell you right now that I'm willing to go 300, no doubt, and I may have to visit it 100 episodes from now. It seemed so quick when I got to episode 100, and then between 100 and 200, it felt longer for some reason. I don't know what that is. Maybe I took a lot more weeks off in between episode 100 and 200 than I did the first, but it does feel like it's taken longer to get through the second batch of 100 episodes. But I don't feel tired. So I'm willing to go at least another 100 more, and then you can check back in with me.
All righty. You heard it here first, folks. 100 more episodes.
Going to 300. That's 2 more years of podcasting.
And if he doesn't make it that far, we're all going to come for your head.
Yes, yeah. You know what? That's another thing that's sort of rolled around in my head. Like, what if I do say, like, I've had enough of this? Would I close up shop, or would I seek out a new, like, that would be cool. It would be like handing off like the Tonight Show, finding my replacement, somebody that I'd be confident enough that would carry it up at least 100 more episodes from where they took it over. If they found they couldn't do it, they would keep it going, because I wouldn't want Mr. Frank to be the brand. I would want Bizzong to be the brand. And I don't know. I haven't really thought much on like who would be the perfect Bizzong host to carry it on, but maybe that's something I'll explore for episode 300. do a you're gonna inherit Bizzong episode for episode 300.
Yeah, put it in your will in case something ever happens to you. Someone will just be like, "What? I'm the host of Bizzong now?" Like just some random writer.
Are you kidding me? He's the only one that wanted to talk to all these idiots. That's why he was doing it. Nobody else has done that. I think of that's crazy to me when I think of all the other podcasts that have come and gone or just not been as regular as Bizzong. Jeff Berg's done some. I mean, John Wayne's doing a great job. I mean, he's right on my heels for being a regular guy. I mean, he's not necessarily, he's a very self-promotional type of podcast. But he's still, Bizarro adjacent type of writer. So I think he counts in the bubble of our type of podcasting. So he's been doing a really good job. But like you've done a couple of startups and stuff, and I enjoyed listening the hell out of them. But I mean, it is, everybody wants to start a podcast, but it's rough. It's rough to do for a long time. And I think that he said the average podcast only, like, if you get a year out of a podcast, it's a lot of all the ones that start up.
I'll tell you, the only reason my current podcast is still going right now is because I don't do any of the uploading, editing. Like, I don't touch it. I just record and that's it.
Your talent.
And I think that's what happened to my other two shows that I tried. I was just like, even when I'm trying to simplify the work, I'm just like, this is too much. Like, I just don't have the drive, or I wasn't getting out of it what I wanted to get out of it, aside from just, goofing with my friends or whoever I was recording with.
Yeah, I think that's part of my longevity with Bizzong, is because, like I said, I did that one before, and that was with a friend, and it wasn't a Skype thing. We made sure we made time to get together, either at his house or mine, and do the things, and we have to coordinate books. It became work. It became hard. We couldn't just, he has a family, I have a family, we have wives to answer to, kids to answer to. It became difficult just to find the time to do it. And as it became difficult, it just gets frustrating and tiresome, and you don't want to do it. And I think part of what's helped Bizzong stay this long is it's just me, really. I have guests on every week, but I don't have to get them the same guy every week to record with me. So it's easier to find somebody to essentially work with for an hour a week than trying to get two people to do the show together constantly. So I think that's helped out a great deal.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, man. That's all the questions I had for you.
That's good. That's all I feel like answering now. We're at the hour mark, right? But that was cool. I appreciate that you did that and sprung it on me and had a little bit of fun with that. And I really, truly appreciate you joining me, being able to join me for episode 1 and episode 200 as well. Keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on the episode count, because episode 300, I'm scheduling you right now for.
Oh, all right.
So get your questions ready. Ask me
my
about.
bi-yearly appearance, I guess it'll be.
Are you drinking your nutrition shakes? Or how's your walker? Is it a little rickety? You need new tennis balls. That type of stuff.
Wow. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it. Episode 300.
Yeah, 2 years away, and hopefully we'll be allowed out of the house by then. And who knows? Maybe you can be live in studio again for episode 300. Plan your whole vacation around it.
I'm going to make a vacation. Once this quarantine is over, I'm going to go everywhere and do everything, the entire world. So, yeah, I'll be sleeping in your basement for a minute.
You could do those tours. You could be the guy that go on the Great New Jersey Bizzong tour. And this is where we did this is where the Crawl Con was that took place that we discussed in episode number 200. And this is the house I was at when we recorded episode number 1. You can just take people all around New Jersey to the interesting landmarks that are all related to Bizzong.
Yeah, I'm sure most people, when they think of a vacation spot, they're thinking of New Jersey.
New Jersey and you, perfect together.
Yeah. I'll be forcing them at gunpoint on this tour, but it'll be fun.
Well, you know how we have to market New Jersey. You just have to appeal to the New Yorkers and go, "Hey, we've got more trees than you," and then hopefully we got a beach.
Less taxes on clothing, or no taxes on clothing.
No taxes on clothing. Yeah, all you got to do is spend $35 to come over the bridge to not pay $1.50 for your jeans and taxes. Now we're really into the weeds. Or people from Illinois are like, "What the fuck are they talking about?"
Everyone has tuned out at this point.
Okay, Danger Slater, you've got nothing to buy, but you got everything to buy. So make sure you support Danger Slater by buying one of his books. You can buy directly. Did people just hit you up anymore to buy books for you, or have you sold out and you have nothing actually to sell at the moment?
I don't have any personalized books, but I want to actually say this, especially while the quarantine or this lockdown's going on. If you are looking to buy books, instead of going on Amazon, log on to an indie bookshop or a bookstore, or like if you have a personal favorite bookstore that has online orders you can use. I would encourage everyone to support independent bookstores as opposed to Amazon with any books that they're buying, including mine, or buying them directly from the artist, directly from the publisher. Any way you can get around supporting the giant monolithic corporation that owns everything and is the only one making money right now would be the ideal. If you got to pay an extra $1, so be it. It's going to a good cause.
I've heard a lot of talk lately on that front and that appeal of this website called bookstore.org, which to that end supports the local bookstores, kind of, I guess, gives it local bookstores a centralized place to get their books distributed through e-commerce. Yeah,
I had bought a couple books the other day, and I used Powell's, which is our big indie bookstore here in Portland. The bookstore is huge. It takes an entire city block up, and they have a couple satellite stores. So obviously they have quite a bit of rent that they have to pay.
Yeah.
And not having their store open puts a big strain on them. So I've been trying to use them specifically to buy all the books I've gotten in the last month.
That is an excellent point. And I thank you for reminding everybody. I thank you once again for joining us on Bizzong. And real quick, any idea when we might see a new Danger Slater book out in the world?
Oh man, I got nothing on the horizon, but I have lots of things finished. Mm-hmm. So at some point, some dam is going to break, and it's all going to start flooding out. So it's this is a period of dormancy, let's say, or a calm before some sort of storm. And I don't know exactly when we're going to get that, but I promise you there'll be more books at some point.
Excellent.
In the future.
I definitely look forward to it. I definitely look forward to getting you back here on Bizzong when that happens. And happy 200 episodes for you, even though you've taken part in, I don't know, it's got to be at least 6 or 7 now. You got to be the king of Bizzong.
I think this is our 6th.
Yeah, that feels pretty right.
Yeah.
See, that's the benefit of being guest number 1. I just keep going back to you.
Yeah, I'll always have a platform to talk specifics about the state of New Jersey with another New Jersey that 99% of your listening audience won't be able to relate to.
That sounds like we could launch a podcast off of that. Danger Slater, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us on Bizzong.
Thank you.
The great Danger Slater, air horning us in, out, and all about this episode celebrating 200 episodes of Bizzong with the human air horn himself, Mr. Danger Slater. Thank him so much for joining us. And Zongers, the biggest thank you of all goes to all of you fine Zongers, because without you, there is not one episode of Bizzong. There is not 200 episodes of Bizzong. It's because of you that I've been able to do this show for over 5 years and provide you with 200 episodes of the Weird and Wacky Fiction Podcast. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening all this time. Thank you for going back and listening to shows you've missed. And thank you for listening to the shows that you do listen to and making this the premier Weird and Wacky Fiction Podcast on the intranets. Like that's something I don't think about often, but I think there's a truth to that statement somehow. And Zongers, if you're loving the show, if for some reason this is the first time you're actually listening to Bizzong or you listen to casually, hey, don't forget, Bizzong is not only available as a podcast for you to listen to, but we're also out there on the Twitter and the Instagram and the Facebook. All you got to do is look up Bizzong on any of those platforms, and you can join in on the fun over there. You're always getting the links to the shows. You're getting the cool doodles I do every week. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to the Bizzong podcast on your favorite podcast playing app. And, hey, while we're at it, don't forget, all you thrill seekers out there, Iconoclash Review is your home for quality, cheap thrills. It features shady casino ladies, murderous junkies, strange kaiju cults, Sasquatch love brides, and so much more. Iconoclash Review promotes literacy by publishing only the best contemporary pulp, including crime, horror, noir, sci-fi, fantasy, weird, bizarro, humor, and other words for uplifting gourmandizers. Purchase your very own copy of Iconoclash Review at most fine online retailers, including downandoutbooks.com. But wait, there's more. Follow the thrills over at iconoclash.com for weekly articles, reviews, and interviews with indie writers, artists, and publishers. Do you want to become part of the wildest rag on the planet? Now's your chance. Iconoclash Review will open for submissions June 1st through the 14th, 2020. All you've got to do is visit iconoclash.com and look for the guidelines. And remember, if you need quality, cheap thrills, you must read Iconoclash Review, an imprint of Down and Out Books. That's iconoclash.com, iconoclash.com. Say it with me 3 times, because as we learned anything in this episode, the more you say it, the more it's going to stick in your brains. So here we go, iconoclash.com today. And Zongers, that's all I've got for you. 200 shows. We're going to be back next week, carrying on with episode 201 and another fantastic guest. And until then, you are now free to go and listen to these other great Project Entertainment Network podcasts.
A podcast where 3 horror authors discuss monsters? It must be Wandering Monster. Roll initiative!
I feel like once you put the mask on it...
Once you put the mask on it, it's a monster.
Please rise for his dishonor. Judge of the abyss. Fetid pig at the table of suffering.
You brought the Whomping Willow. I brought a goddamn kaiju.
We'll see you every Monday.
The Necrocasticon, where we blend horror and heavy metal for your pleasure and ours. Featuring interviews with the stars of heavy metal, horror, and more. With host speculative fiction author and journalist Thomas R. Clarke, YouTube sensation Mr. Scott Reacts, foodie and metal historian, Smoking Walt Ball, the Spartan Warrior, Sergeant Fury, Dan Roberts. And our guy on the couch, Uncle Skip. 'Cause we all need a guy on the couch. Oh, and me, Charlotte, your virtual hostess. Available Mondays, wherever you find your fine-ass podcasts.